to the Captain's Spot. I'm your host, Justin Freeman, 6 foot 1 inches, 275 pounds of fantasy knowledge. It's week 9, boys and girls. Sunday night football edition. We're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the New Orleans Saints. Two of the best teams in football. They've already played once this year. We've got something to look back on. They're battling for NFC playoff rights and seeding in the NFC. And we're talking about a game with a 4.5-point spread in favor of the home team Buccaneers. A 50.5-point total. Two of the best quarterbacks of all time squaring off with each other. This looks like it should be a good one. Before we hop into the slate, quick reminder, go check out CPTspot.com. Pick up a copy of the Showdown ebook, available for sale right there for $34.99. Like, rate, review, subscribe to the show as well. That's going to do it for the sales pitch. Let's talk about this slate, which actually seems like it could be a really, really good one. There are a number of injuries that we need to make sure we are aware of. The two key ones involve Michael Thomas, star wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, scheduled to come back to the Saints for the first time since week 1. Made it all the way to week 9. 8 weeks in between, there's been a lot that's happened with Michael Thomas. He's had injuries and setbacks. He's had a team suspension. Things have just not gone well for Michael Thomas in what amounts to at least halfway a lost season so far for Michael Thomas at wide receiver. On the other side of the football, Chris Godwin is back after sitting out last week with a broken finger. At least we expect him to be back. Both Godwin and Michael Thomas, both questionable entering this game. Both are expected to play at this point. But there are two key injuries. We want to make sure they make it all the way through the inactives and are suiting up. If they don't, it changes the complete dynamics of the entire slate because they are two premium players. Also, a roster move to note is we'll get for the first time this year Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. So we're going to be trying to figure out how that depth chart should predict in its first week with featuring Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans all in the same offense. And it could go so many different ways. We'll have to sort of lean back on our understanding of where these guys are at these points in their career and understanding where those targets are going to go. Also of note, Marquez Callaway, Emmanuel Sanders, both will be back for the Saints this week. They're all clear. Callaway was on the injury report earlier in the week with the ankle, carries no game designation. Sanders, as you'll recall, missed the last 2 weeks due to COVID protocol and is back. So without further ado, why don't we hop into the pricing? Take a look at what we've got here this week and start with the quarterback position. Drew Brees, $10,000. Tom Brady, 10-6. And I think when we're talking about quarterbacks, we want to immediately go and look at the total for this game, 50.5 points. I think that total indicates that more than likely each of these guys should be involved in our lineups. Probably both as flex plays in our lineups, despite the $10,000, $10,600 price tag. Both of these teams are going to be projected to have multiple passing touchdowns. So, and if that's the case, it's going to be hard to imagine lineup situations where they're not both in there. However, this is a pretty expensive slate. We talked about some of the premium wide receivers on this slate. We haven't even touched on the running backs. Alvin Kamara, $11,200. A guy who could easily sort of push Drew Brees out of a winning lineup formation. You have to figure out what you want to do there. Kamara obviously has a super high floor. You have to question where that floor exists now with the return of Michael Thomas. Was Alvin Kamara, and Jeff has gotten on me about the way we pronounce Kamara. Apparently it's Kamara. I'll get it wrong every time moving forward. There's no doubt about it. Alvin Kamara will be able to project the same number of targets with Michael Thomas back in the offense. I think it's predictably no. The question is, to what extent does Michael Thomas limit Kamara's potential target share in this offense? And then can Kamara get there a little bit more predictably on the ground with just traditional rushing volume, or will he lose some of that volume to Latavius Murray? He's $2,400, and so far this year it's been pretty close to a split. Kamara's been fairly, probably about 7% of rushing market share ahead of Latavius Murray. That equates to about 2 to 3 rushes a game more for Alvin Kamara, and so that's not a huge differential there between the rushing equity for Kamara and Murray. Obviously, Kamara, a much more talented player than Murray is. I also included Taysom Hill here in the running back section because he doesn't really fit anywhere else. He's $6,000 this week, and thank goodness you just don't even have to make a decision on Taysom Hill. Although I guess you could probably make an argument that you wish he were priced down so other people would play him, but overall we're not super interested in Taysom Hill. As we look at the Tampa Bay side of the running back situation, Leonard Fournette $6,800 this week. I do believe he is the premium running back in this offense now over Ronald Jones. That could go a couple different ways. It could just be sort of a game-by-game thing where we're trying to figure out each and every week who is the guy to on between Fournette and Ronald Jones. However, and it looked like Ronald Jones came out operating as the lead back last week until a fumble sort of led to Uncle Len taking over and operating as the feature back for the remainder of the game. But I think Fournette's clearly the more talented running back between he and Ronald Jones. LaShawn McCoy, $200, really just was not a factor at all last week in Week 8. So I think we can consider moving on from LaShawn McCoy. Don't include him in our consideration process. Looking at the pass catchers, Michael Thomas cost you $9,800 this week. To me, he's just like stands out as the guy who I want to make sure I have the most exposure to, because even at $9,800, that makes him the most expensive wide receiver on the slate. He's such a crucial part of the Saints offense, and a guy who I believe is going to directly impact Alvin Kamara's both floor and ceiling in this offense. Now, I think you can make a claim that Michael Thomas won't be just like massively involved in his first week back. And I think that's probably fair. However, I think Michael Thomas is going to earn his targets, and he's going to be used frequently if he's going to be out there. We see some teams who just sort of force guys to play through injuries, and other teams that are a bit more conservative. The Saints seem to be a bit conservative in their treatment of guys. Michael Thomas probably could have come back 2 or 3 different times so far this year. They haven't absolutely needed him to. And now he'll get to come back at what I perceive to be relative full strength. $9,800 rocket ship season there for Michael Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders, $5,800. He's back this week. To me, Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith, both the wide receivers behind Michael Thomas in this offense, are guys that you can only sort of use in a way to strategically fade, if that's what you're trying to do, and just be different in large field tournaments. Or overall just sort of filling a vacant amount of salary that matches that area. But overall, that's not an area I want to be super heavily invested in. And, Jared Cook, another guy, like we're starting to run out of targets. If we think we've got to feed Alvin Kamara and now we have to feed Michael Thomas, and we know some, complimentary amount of volume is going to Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith, like just the ceiling is capped for all of these guys. Jared Cook, it's going to be tough for him to get there at $5,400. Was he super attractive when we didn't have Emmanuel Sanders or Michael Thomas on the field? Yeah, of course. But is he super attractive at $5,400 when there's very few targets left to go around in the offense? No, not at all. Deontay Harris, Marquez Callaway, Josh Hill. To me, those are just a handful of the cheap guys that you can consider if you just absolutely want to go stars and scrub type approach in your lineup building. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Those are the 3 main guys over on the Tampa Bay side of the football. Evans, $8,400. Godwin, $7,600. Brown, $7,400. I think the order of this pricing is inaccurate. As we look at what we should be able to expect moving forward for these teams, I mentioned this last week, and Mike Evans does not look like the same Mike Evans that we've seen. Chris Godwin does not, we do not know exactly what to expect with his broken finger. We're not positive he can catch footballs. And that would be a big concern here in Week 9 if he cannot catch footballs consistently. Maybe they want to use him a little bit more like an emergency option. I'm assuming since he's out there, he's probably going to be fine. But that's certainly concerning that for a wide receiver to have a broken finger that may impact their ability to make grabs. And it's Antonio Brown, $7,400. If I had to guess which of those 3 guys is likely to lead the team in targets this week, it's Antonio Brown. And it's been a while since we've seen him on a football field and performing at a high level. But that's all we've seen from Antonio Brown, and I think there's a lot of reason to suspect that that continues. He's a guy in the lineup all over the field. I don't know how much of the playbook he will have been given here in just a couple weeks with the team. However, I believe he and Tom Brady have a little bit more of a rapport than possibly Brady even has with Evans or Godwin at this point. We saw Brady vouching for Antonio Brown. I typically don't get into off-field narratives, but there's a lot of reason to suspect Tom Brady had a lot to do with Antonio Brown coming to Tampa Bay. And for that reason, Antonio Brown's going to be a priority item over Evans, over Chris Godwin for me this week. Rob Gronkowski, $6,400. Another guy who, with the insertion of Antonio Brown into this offense, just going to be seeing fewer targets. And same thing for Scotty Miller, who's just not going to be on the field, $4,800. Cameron Brate, $1,800. If the Buccaneers decide to go with more three-wide sets, Brate is the sort of obvious loser, but at $1,800, you got to figure out what does he need to get you in order to pay off that salary. It's not a ton. You're really just hoping he can be the punt guy that allows you to fit 5 other guys that you really want to play in your offense. Let's take a look at the captain assignments this week. It's Michael Thomas season, boys and girls. Michael Thomas with the runaway captain assignment in this game. And part of that comes with my confidence in projecting his targets moving forward. We run 10,000 simulations, and out of that, Michael Thomas, the captain, and about 2,500 of them, so about a quarter of our simulations, Michael Thomas is the captain. He's followed up by Tom Brady. And again, Brady is a bit higher on this list than I typically see quarterbacks, and I think I've got a good reason why. Brady has so many weapons at his disposal that it's easy for him to get to captain spot payoff without also paying off his receivers at just a super high clip. He could easily spray those 4 touchdowns he's going to throw throughout the rest of the offense. Or one goes to Brown, one goes to Evans, one goes to Godwin, one goes to Gronkowski. It's so easy to imagine that. Whereas Drew Brees, on the other hand, completely different story. Like, we don't think that Drew Brees is going to be passing just as many touchdowns to Tre'Quan Smith or Jared Cook as he is to Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara. Like, there's a big gap in the talent and the projectable targets. So that's why those 2 quarterbacks are in very different spots on this list. But Alvin Kamara, obviously, still a guy, and see there, I've already forgotten how to say his name, Kamara. Has there ever been a premium player who don't know how to say his name right? So Alvin Kamara, third on this list, followed by Antonio Brown, and then Chris Godwin. And then there's a pretty big drop-off after that. So I want to kind of cap my captain assignments to those 5 guys: Michael Thomas, Tom Brady, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin. Moving on to our flex, it's obviously Tom Brady and Drew Brees that are priority items for us, trying to get those guys in. They give us the floor-ceiling combo that we're looking for. The only real reason that Tom Brady or Drew Brees would not be in the winning lineup would likely have to do with salary constraints. So, in your lineups where you're, fading Brady and Brees, I think those lineups are going to tend to cluster towards max salary. So if you're, leaving a lot of salary on the table, you're probably going to want to have both of those guys in your lineup. Alvin Kamara, then Alvin Kamara, then Mike Thomas. I'm just going to stop trying. I'm saying it however I want to. Mike Thomas, Latavius Murray. So there you go. We see Latavius Murray as sort of our preferred cheap guy popping up in a lot of these lineups. Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, Will Lutz. And so that's a little bit high for a kicker for me. Will Lutz all the way up there, another cheap way to get a part of making some rosters in this offense. Tre'Quan Smith follows Will Lutz, Emmanuel Sanders, Cameron Brate. And so there you go. We have it, guys. That is the way this thing's going to shake out. We want to prioritize Michael Thomas being our captain this week. We want to prioritize getting those 2 quarterbacks in our flex spots. We do that. We've got 3 positions down, 3 positions to go. I love Antonio Brown this week. I think he makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons. Overall, guys, this is your game. This is your lineup. Make the thing the way you want to. Hopefully you've got the tools that you need to succeed. That'll do it here for us. Week 9, Sunday Night Football Edition. Check out Monday night over on Mayo Media Network. We'll catch you guys soon.